Hello, my name is Miss Bradley and I'm here to teach you how to plan an essay to a C grade standard today. We're going to be looking at the question, analyse the reader's emotional response to the events of Humpty Dumpty, which might sound a little bit childish, but through this question we're going to teach you how to analyse a text, any text, to a high standard. Okay, the beauty of this plan is that it has 5 parts and only 5 parts. You will never have to write an essay with more than that again. And we always start off, if we imagine that this is our page, we're going to use the whole page. We need a box at the top with space for about 4 bullet points. Then we need 3 smaller boxes. Underneath that, we need 3 bigger boxes, which we divide into 3, and at the bottom we do 1 bigger box with again room for about 4 bullet points. It will all make sense very shortly, I promise. Okay, so this top box here is for your introduction. All you need to do in the introduction is establish what you are talking about and the point of view that it's written from. So we're looking at Humpty Dumpty. We know that Humpty Dumpty is about a great big egg called Humpty Dumpty who sat on a wall and had a fall. And we know that it's told from the point of view of a narrator who's watching this happen. So all we need to put in our introduction is it's about an egg who has an accident, and it's told from the point of view of an outside narrator or an omniscient narrator, someone who sees things as they happen. Don't worry about saying things like, in this essay I am going to, because that's irrelevant. You don't really need to talk about that. Your teacher knows what you've been asked to do. All you need to establish is exactly what you're talking about. Okay, so next what we need to do is establish the key points that relate to what we've been asked to do. We've been asked to analyse the reader's emotional response to the events of Humpty Dumpty. Now at the beginning I told you that this essay plan is amazing because it's only got 5 key things. And that's right, you've done 1 already. What you now need to do is expand your essay and pad it out a little bit with the relevant information. So we've been asked to respond to events. So what we need to do is choose 3 key events. 1, 2, 3, and in a minute we'll be analysing them in detail. So if we go to Humpty Dumpty and we go to the first line, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, that's our first key event. So Humpty Dumpty is sat on a wall. Then if we continue reading the text, we see that the next key event is Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. So our next box and our next key event would be the great fall. Finally, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. So our final key event is they couldn't fix him. So we've got our 3 key points. What we now need to do is expand them and make them into a fantastic essay. So what we now need to do is focus on expanding our 3 key points to include all of that analysis that's going to get us that high level. So we've established that the first event is Humpty Dumpty sitting on a wall. So what we need to do first is think about the reader's initial emotional response. And I think at the beginning of the poem we establish a connection with the key character, and that's important in any text. If you don't have a connection, you don't really know or care about the character. So we establish the connection, and I think the key thing here is that Humpty Dumpty was sat on a wall. So what we now need to do is we need to think about how we analyse that. So we need to think about our response. Humpty Dumpty's sitting on a wall. Why is that important? What does that show us? And for me, I think I would say that if you're sat on a wall, that shows you that you're quite relaxed. I would say it might show that you're quite laid back. And therefore Humpty Dumpty as a being is pretty chilled out. He's not feeling stressed. And that relates to us. It relates to you specifically as teenagers. All you really want to do is feel quite relaxed and quite calm. Okay? So now we've done our first set of notes, we now move on to the next event. The next event is the great fall. Now this is probably the most important one. We've already established our connection, so naturally the next point we make is that the connection's being questioned. We're worrying about the key character. So we start to worry. Now, when we look at the great fall, I think it's really important that we look at the important word in there. And I think the most important word is great. This is a great fall. It's not a little fall. It's obviously not an accident. Something big has happened to Humpty Dumpty. And I think if you really want to get up into the B's and the A's and the A stars, you need to be thinking about what that fall is. Is it a literal fall? Has he just fallen off a wall? Could it be a metaphor for something else? Could it be a metaphor for a fall from grace? What's happened to Humpty? And all of these ideas need to go in this bottom box. So we can start with the literal. He's fallen. We might say that this makes us concerned. But then we're going to get a little bit deeper and we say, is the fall a metaphor? What's happened to him? Okay, what does this fall mean? And these are all things that we'll address when we come to write the actual essay. Okay, so finally, we look at our final point, and that's the king's horses and king's men trying to put Humpty together again and not being able to. So we've established our connection, we've started to worry, so our natural response as a reader is to try to fix it. So we want to fix it. But we can't, okay? We know that we couldn't put Humpty together again, and that's our quote. And then we need to think about what that means, okay? The king's horses and the king's men can't put Humpty together again, so it's not fixable. It's not something we can solve. How does that make us feel as a reader? What's our emotional response to this? We've been concerned, we've been quite relaxed. Now I think we feel a sense of frustration. And we need to look at why we're so frustrated. Is it because we can't put Humpty back together again, or is it because we don't really know what's been broken in the first place? On a deeper level, we're being forced to reflect on what's actually happening. So Humpty has been put in a position where he's had a fall. It could be a metaphorical fall from grace. It could just be a literal fall that's broken him because he's quite fragile. Either way, we can't fix it. So it forces us to reflect on how we would deal with that situation ourselves. So we've got it's not fixable. It creates a sense of frustration, and then maybe we look for a solution. And again, when we come to write our essay, that's something we can expand upon. So what we need to do now is we need to finish our plan. And the way we finish our plan is the most important part of any essay, really. It's the personal response. You need to tell us what you think about the text that you've just read, what your interpretation of it is. So we've been talking about the fact that Humpty Dumpty's fall might not really have been a fall at all. It could have been a metaphor. The fall could have been a fall from grace. Something bad's happened that's maybe destroyed his reputation, or something that's ruined him as a person. So I think my personal response would be that the text, in my opinion, is a metaphor. There's no wrong answer here. This is English. There's no right or wrong answer. It's all to do with your interpretation. I think that Humpty did something bad that came back maybe to bite him on the bum. Maybe he did something wrong, maybe he did something terrible, and he had a fall from grace, and regardless of anyone's attempts to put him back together and to fix him, they weren't able to. So I think maybe there's a lesson in there, there's a moral to the story. And for me, if I was going to wrap this essay up, they're the three things I want to really focus on. So what we need to do now is show you how to put these together into an essay. So we've got our plan, it's completed, so how do we write it? Well, the beauty of it is, like I said at the beginning, it's only got 5 parts, which means it's actually only got 5 paragraphs. Your introduction here is paragraph number 1, and then in the centre you've just got 3 PEA paragraphs, so 3 analytical paragraphs. Sitting on a wall, your first event is paragraph 2. Your description of the Great Fall and your analysis of that is paragraph 3. The fact that you couldn't fix him and your analysis of that would be paragraph 4. And your personal response at the bottom would be paragraph 5. So this essay can really be used for anything. We'll do another video that will show you how to do it for creative writing, but for now, if you're reading a text, be it war poetry or The Great Gatsby or Animal Farm or even just Humpty Dumpty, you can make a 5-part plan out of anything. All you need to remember is that at the beginning you explain what the text is about and who the narrator is, the point of view. Then you need to make 3 key points that answer your question and make sure that your key points relate to your question. If they don't, then you're not really showing those skills of relating back. And then you finish with a personal response. And remember that, that's really important. You always remember at the end to say what you thought of the text, whether you thought it was effective and what your personal interpretation of it is. And if you do that, you will be able, within 10 minutes, plan an essay for any kind of text.